Hey, what's up, guys? This is Terabyte, and welcome back to Asagao Academy. So, last episode, we went with John to the city. We're still in the city, and we're looking for a pet store, but she's got something to say, and I think it's gonna be sad again, so I've got my tissues around here somewhere. I'm prepared to cry my eyes out, because it's probably going to be very emotional. Alright, lay it on me. I got this. John stretched an arm against the lamppost we were passing, planted his feet solidly on the ground. It seemed we wouldn't be moving until I said it. I sighed. Fine. My mom passed away when I was 8, so I barely remember her. Happy? He looked surprised for a brief second, and I glanced away. I knew what would come next, and I didn't want to see it. Instead, I strode on past him. In a second, he was right back next to me, pumping his arms in his characteristic show-tune manner. For a moment, it seemed like he forgot he was Malkovich. Yes, actually, I'm quite happy. That wasn't too bad, was it? The words flowed swift out of his mouth, just as they always did, almost without care. He wasn't trying to coddle me. No, it wasn't. So do you have that necklace back home, then? No, she was buried with it because it was so important to her. My dad misses her so much. John nodded sagely. I bet. I think I can. I can kind of understand in some way. We stood at a stoplight, waiting for the light at the crosswalk to turn green. Why do you even come to Asagao anyways? What? You're a scholarship kid, aren't you? It probably costs a lot to go here, so you must have some big reason. I bit my lip. Why was John being so nosy? I bet he wouldn't like it if I asked him these questions, and it was kind of hard to take him seriously in that getup. I scanned the street for something neat, something to distract him from the question, and gasped. Look, the pet store! The light changed green, and I sped across the street and down to the next block. A bright orange sign proclaimed the shop to be Pets and Pests. Not the friendliest of names, but it would do. Come on, let's go. I grabbed the door and held it open for John, but he just stared at me. What's wrong? I don't know if I can do this anymore, Hana. He glanced down the street. This was a bad idea. Let's just go home. What do you say? I rolled my eyes, grabbed his hand, and pulled him inside. Come on, you'll be fine. Aww. Lively and mostly live birds. Oh my god. Oh my god. A seedy-looking old man glanced at us as we entered the shop, but upon seeing John's getup, he turned back to the newspaper in his lap. A questionable reaction, but welcome nonetheless. I wasn't fond of employees hovering over my shoulder while shopping. I always felt pressured to buy something. We passed cages filled with puppies and kittens and ferrets and fish and spiders and snakes. I tried the hardest not to look at anything, partially out of fear and partially because I knew if I locked eyes with something, I'd want to take it home. No, even more than that, I would take it home. I'd smuggle it into Asagao like illegal drugs and spend my days treating it like actual family. The birds were at the back of the shop, presumably so their high-pitched chirps wouldn't upset the store owner after a particularly late night. We glanced through the cages, seeing birds of every shape and color. For such a small shop, they sure had a lot of variety. But then I spotted it. Hey! John, look! Aww. That bird looks exactly like Jacques. It's the spitting image of him. John frowned, eyeing it skeptically. A green-cheeked conure. It's the right species, and it does look oddly similar. He peered closely at the bird, who was napping lazily on its branch. No, the colors are exactly the same. It's almost like Jacques was based off this bird. Or vice versa. What? Pardon? It's a conspiracy! Anyways, let's get him. I headed toward the store owner, but John grabbed my arm. What's wrong? John glanced away. The wheels were churning in his mind. John wasn't the hardest person to read. I don't have a cage or food, so I shouldn't do this. I don't know about real birds. I only know about Jacques. I should study more, or something. You definitely have a cage. We helped make that birdhouse together, remember? I guess we did. Besides, I don't believe you studied a day in your life. Rude! I happen to be a very intelligent and culturally sound individual. Just the other day, I went to the symphony to hear Firebird. Okay, Mr. Culture, stop making excuses and let's go. I approached the store owner, who glared at me. I could read his thoughts in his eyes. Stupid kid. This is why I hated talking to employees at stores. Excuse me, can we please have that green connoir? He flicked his tongue around his mouth. I could see the little lump probing his cheeks. What's it to you?
What?
What? What's that bird to you? A pet? Humph. The man snapped his newspaper back up, not even looking at me anymore. What the hell? Let me try. John approached the counter and slammed his hand down on it. The man peered around his newspaper, then jumped. Why, hello, sir. Your benevolence. How might I serve you? Well, I need that green birdie for my little lady friend, and it seems you aren't interested in giving it to her. The man twisted his hands. He glanced from me to John. I'm very sorry, sir. I simply thought, but then the bird is rightly yours. Pardon me. Rightly yours? What is he talking about? Shh. Just let it happen. He boxed up the bird, then included a handful of beginner's bird items at no extra charge. He bowed us out of the shop. In no time, we were back in the street and on our way back. I still don't get what just happened. The Malkoviches are a long, dignified line. They're practically celebrities back in their homeland. Wait, so Malkovich is a real guy? You don't need to worry about it. Let's get home. John patted me on the head and then started across the street. The whole affair took much longer than I anticipated, and by the time we were on our way home, I was exhausted. The bird sat quietly in its box on John's lap, John peering nervously through the air slits. You think this is really gonna work? What? Try as I might to stop it, I yawned. My vision was hazy, and my head kept tipping towards John's shoulder. John smiled at me, his question remaining unanswered. After some time, he rolled his eyes and patted the side of my head. I snapped awake. What? If you're gonna sleep on me, just do it. It's bothering me that you haven't made up your mind. I smiled, then scooted closer to John and laid my head on his shoulder. He was so warm. I almost didn't mind that he was still in that Malkovich getup. Almost. Aw, this is really cute! As the train pulled into the Higabana station, John shifted nervously. I pulled my head off his shoulder. Yeah, what's going on? We're getting close to Asagao, and I just realized something. PBG was supposed to be meeting up with Gerard tonight in our room. What if he's still there? I'm not going to be able to take this Jacques in like this. They'll know something's up. Well, that's no problem. We can keep him in my dorm room. Mai's got a game tonight in another town, and it was supposed to go on late. Really? Are you sure, though? I know you're afraid of birds. I mean, it's only until Gerard leaves, right? What could be the harm in that? The trip across campus was perilous. It took all of our collective ninja skills not to be caught by teachers or other students. This is starting to be like a Hogwarts fucking night out at Hogsmeade that wasn't supposed to happen. Utilizing bushes, postal boxes, trees, and the occasional holding a soccer ball until you found the ground in front of your face trick. We made it to Primrose House. Just before we entered, I turned to him. Can't you at least take off that disguise now? I think it'll cause even more suspicion the way you are. No, it won't. Nobody can tell it's me. Yeah, but I wasn't talking about suspicion for you. With a sigh, I pulled the door open. Malkovich's mind was made up. There was nothing I could do. We climbed the stairs with halting steps. I peered around every corner to ensure nobody was around. New Jacques was surprisingly well behaved considering the amount of travel and jumping to and fro that we were putting him through. Either he was still asleep or he was so chill as to be confused with the dead. I winced as the thought occurred to me. Too soon, Hana. Too soon. We climbed to the 3rd floor and sprinted to my door. I took out my keys as fast as I could, trying to unlock the door. Hana! Kakusu was suddenly next to me, having made almost no sound in her approach. As I fit the key into the lock and turned it, Kakusu made a high-pitched whine. Mai texted me. She told me to tell you to save her a pork bun from dinner. I now see that is no longer possible. I slowly nodded. Kakusu stared at me, evidently expecting some kind of response. Okay. Thank you. She nodded, eyes flashing. Message delivered. With that, Kakusu disappeared to her own room. Huh, who is that girl? Let's just say Jacques isn't the only robot in town. Damn, Hana, that's cold. You can't go calling other people robots. Oh, never mind. I shoved the door open and ushered John inside. John set the box and bag of products down with a sigh. It's not heavy, but damn, it was uncomfortable. Thanks for carrying everything. Hey, it's my stuff. John shrugged, rolling his shoulders. I eyed the box warily. Knew Jacques still hadn't made a peep. Was he really okay? I'm gonna head back and check whether Gerard's around. I'll come back as soon as the coast is clear. John followed my eyes to the box. Are you sure you'll be okay?
Yeah.
Of course, I can handle a little old bird, and you'll be back before I even know it. Okay, if you're sure. John was clearly uncomfortable with this, but I felt I could handle myself. I shooed him out the door just before it closed. I stuck my head into the hallway. And please change your clothes. John gave me a thumbs up. Satisfied, I went back into my room. It was still and silent, as if I were totally alone. My uniform was still laying out on my bed, my homework spread across my desk. Everything was normal. Except that there was another living being in the room with me. The silence was really starting to throw me off. I tried to peer through one of the box's breathing holes, but I couldn't see anything. Was it even in there? If all birds were this calm, then maybe I was wrong to be so afraid of them all these years. It wasn't like I had a rational reason for hating them. They were just so small and fast and pointy. So much potential for destruction in one tiny flying package. I changed in my pajamas and sat on my bed and looked around my room. Well, now what? Practice or check out Mr. Birdie? Well, as much as I would love to poke around and make sure the bird is okay, we really should practice, because we haven't done hardly any of that. Yeah, I should practice. There's only a few weeks left until the tournament. After all, I didn't want to embarrass Normal Boots. I pulled out my phone and turned it on. Instantly, several texts came in from Mai's number, all begging me to save her a pork bun. Sorry, Mai. I switched out of the texting app and started up the game. After a brief loading screen, the chirping music began to play. I challenged someone to a multiplayer match and waited for the timer countdown. Ugh. That guy was hard. Ree! 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 The bird started screaming, bouncing around into the box walls and moving to and fro across my desk. Pencils and books clattered to the floor. The box flew across my desk as if possessed. It drew close to the edge of the desk, almost falling off. No! It was gonna fall off! Not knowing what to do, I reached over and pulled open the lid. Ree! The bird flew out of the box and around the room, a complete blur. It rammed into a wall, knocking down my shelf, and then into my bed, and then into a desk. Objects fell across the room as if we were having an earthquake. Then talons flew at my face. I covered my face with my arms, and then it was on me, beating against my skin and tearing through my hair. Screaming, I crawled to the door, trying to shake the bird out of my hair. A heavy thud came from my door, and then I heard him. Hana, what's going on? John! I reached up and pulled the door open. John ran into the room, eyes wide. Oh no! John glanced at me on the floor, then grit his teeth. I didn't see how he did it. I know it took some skill and effort, judging by his grunts and the way he hopped around the room. Eventually, after several minutes, the clattering stopped, the screeching became muffled. When I opened my eyes, the bird was back in the box, and the room was a mess. Papers littered the floor, books, action figures, pencils, clothes, everything was flung here and there and across the room. There were fluffs of cotton lining the corners. It took me a few seconds to realize where the cotton came from. When I did, I froze. John turned to me, panting. Why the hell did you let it out of its box? Mr. Bunny! Mr. Bunny lay on the floor, ripped to absolute shreds. If I hadn't had him for so long, I would have never been able to guess the tattered pile of cloth was him. The only recognizable part that remained was a patch containing a single button eye. I picked it up, hands trembling. My... Tears slid down my face. I bit the inside of my cheek, taking deep breaths, trying very hard to stop crying. It was my own fault, after all. It was only a bunny. It was only a bunny. It was only... Oh. I sobbed into the tattered piece of cloth. John's eyes widened, and he flailed uncomfortably. Stop crying. Stop it. Stop that, please. John, do you mind leaving me alone for a bit? No, but I should help you clean up. This is partially my fault, after all. No, I would prefer... I swallowed heavily, trying to stop my voice from wobbling. Please go. John hesitated a few moments, his hands reaching toward me. Then he nodded. It'll be good to get this thing out of here. He grabbed the box and the rest of the supplies, shuffling carefully into the door. As he passed, I flinched. He hesitated, looking at me for just a moment. Then he left. With John gone, I started sobbing almost uncontrollably. My rabbit was gone. He was gone. After all this time, he was gone. I crawled into bed, holding the tattered eye to my chest. Normally, when I was this upset, I could go to Mr. Bunny for comfort. In fact, he was my only friend for the past year. Now, though? Now I was alone, and he was gone. Alright, well, I think we're gonna have to leave that one here. Ugh, that had been such a good episode before, and now we're all sad again. I don't know if I have the emotional fortitude for this, but I want to finish this so bad. Ugh. Alright, I'll see you guys next time.